Welcome to Sports Talk Live Buffalo Plus. I'm Sports Director John Scott, and joining me live from Boston, our Sabres insider Paul Hamilton. No clinching the series Tuesday night, so Game 6 tomorrow back in Beantown, and that's where we find Paul right here. Sabres actually practicing at KeyBank Center today, Paul. You were there among other people here. What is the vibe that you get from this team coming out of the inability to clinch things and wrap this up the other night?
They're very confident. They've come off of losses before this year. They know they're not going to win every game. They knew this was going to be a tough series. They didn't feel they were going to sweep it by any means. So, after a loss, they're always pretty confident. I mean, look what they did after the first loss they had in this series. They went to Boston and won 2 games. So the visiting teams have just been very, very good throughout these playoffs. Well over 500. And in this series, the visiting team has won 4 out of 5 games. And it was almost 5 out of 5. The Sabres had to put on, trailing 2-0, the best 8 minutes they played in a while, just to get a win in that one. That's the only home win of the series. And it's running up about 41% for home teams, 42%. And the road teams are doing very, very well so far in these playoffs. It's above 50%.
Yeah, it's a really interesting, unique sort of trend here. The Bruins taking Game 5 in overtime, not the only loss, though, Paul, for the Sabres. Noah Ostlund leaving the game with a lower body injury, and Lindy Ruff saying over the past few days it doesn't look good, and Ostlund going to miss some time. It seems more than just some. That opening the door for the return to the lineup for Josh Norris, who Ostlund replacing in Game 3 in Boston when Norris was dealing with an injury. He didn't look good in games 1 and 2, and maybe that is because of whatever injury he was dealing with here. I have felt, Paul, before the playoffs even started, Norris was such a big X factor. That entire line is such a big X factor here. How critical is it for Norris to slide in and be the Josh Norris this team acquired just over a year ago?
Well, he went down in Game 1, and looked like he was stunned a little bit. Missed the rest of that period, which was around 4 minutes, and then played the last 2 and then played another game. And it just makes me wonder, was he playing injured the whole time? Because he just wasn't a factor in those games that he played in at all. And then Ostlund came in, was an upgrade because Norris wasn't Norris. So now he's missed a couple of games, 3, and, he says he feels really good. Ruff said he liked him in practice. He saw some speed, liked what he saw. So maybe now that he sat out a few games, he's going to be ready to play the way he's capable of and play without injury.
Yeah, the depth. That's what we heard Jarmo Kekalainen talking about. Lindy Ruff has referenced it so often here throughout these playoffs, and it has been tested for the Sabres on multiple fronts already, and we are just entering Game 6 of the opening round. Ostlund, though, it's really unfortunate, Paul. He was looking absolutely fantastic, and also part of their solutions on the power play as well, the improvement on that unit. Tage Thompson with those 2 goals to ignite the comeback all the way back in Game 1, but he has not, Paul, found the back of the net since. He does have an assist in the past 2 games, though, but how would you assess Thompson's play from Games 2 through 5?
He hasn't been awful, but he does have to score goals. It's so easy to say, but your best players have to be your best players, and he absolutely took over Game 1. They don't win it without him, and got them a victory in that one, and he hasn't scored a goal since. Had a golden opportunity in the 3rd period of the last game when Peyton Krebs sent a cross-crease pass to Thompson for what on some goalies probably would have been a tap-in. But Jeremy Swayman got across, made a phenomenal save on the play, and the Sabres weren't able to score. So he's getting opportunities. He's not finding the back of the net. You look at right when Doan scored. That was a power play that had just ended, and the top unit had been out there before and was moving the puck very well, and they found Thompson in his spot in the left circle by himself, wound up, went to shoot it, and snapped his stick in half. I mean, it's just like, okay. It's just, rotten luck that he's had a little bit too, but he hasn't been, I wouldn't say he has been bad or anything like that. I've liked some of the plays he's made defensively. He does hustle back now and helps out defensively, but let's all face it, he is paid to score goals, and unfortunately for him, only 2 goals, and they both came in game 1.
And I remember, Paul, us having a conversation even in the regular season, maybe the early portion, talking about how he's not streaky. That would be disingenuous to the caliber of player that he is, but his goals tend to come in bunches. And maybe this is a case where, all right, he was absolutely incredible in that rally in game 1, and maybe now as we reach game 6 and beyond in this postseason, Thompson will start finding the back of the net once again. And as you said, the Sabres absolutely need him too. They do have another shot to end this series. That is tomorrow night, game 6, 7:30 up in Boston. What are your expectations for the game tomorrow night back in Boston?
Well, the Sabres absolutely dominated the Bruins in the 2 games here in Boston, outscored them 9-2. Boston scored 2 goals at home in 2 games. Of course, Alex Lyon was very good at that, but his whole team was very good. They defended very well. They were able to get in on the Bruins' defense and really cause havoc with them. They got so rattled. All they basically did is start flipping the puck all over the place, and the Sabres were picking it off and scoring goals off of it, off the turnovers. So, what we saw after game 4 is Boston got much, much better because their pride had been hurt because they basically gave up the game before that. I'm sorry, I said game 4, I meant game 5. And they had basically given up in game 4. And so they were better. The Sabres weren't quite as good, which put 2 evenly matched teams out there, both of which had opportunities to win that hockey game.
Yeah, the opportunities were there, and it also fell on fantastic goaltending. Alex Lyon, even though he gave up that one to end the game in overtime, has been awesome in his return to net. And we've seen what Jeremy Swayman can do in this series dating back to game number 1. Even though the Sabres had that furious comeback and beat him, he has shown to be the goalie that a lot of us had discussed, including you and I, Paul, going into the series as someone who could be a difference maker. Quickly, Paul, you got about 30 seconds here. Do the Sabres have to win this game tomorrow night to really put themselves out of a position where things could go either way?
Yeah, you put awful lot of pressure on them if they have 2 losses and have to come home and play a game 7. So that's something most of them haven't had to do before. It'd be a first for most of them. You don't want to put yourself under that pressure. You're getting 3 opportunities to put a team away. This is the 2nd opportunity. I think you have to do it.
All right, Paul Hamilton in Boston, game 7 Friday night at 7:30. Thanks a lot, Paul. And I like your little dog in the background as well. We're switching gears to the Bills. Vic Carucci joining me as we run down the current state of the Bills roster. You're watching Sports Talk Live Plus here on WGRZ Plus. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus. I got a friend in the flesh here now next to me, and Vic Carucci, the Hall of Famer here, as we're going to shift gears to the Bills. NFL draft now in the books, which means pretty much the roster is set for now, right, as OTAs a couple weeks away. Certainly they have a little bit of room that they could maybe make something, but nothing, in my opinion, that's going to be too notable. So Vic and I, we're now going to go position by position and give our thoughts on the state of things at each group. And we're going to start with defense because I think that's where the most questions are, and we will start immediately right up front on the defensive line, because the number one thing I think you and I are in alignment with when it comes to coming out of the draft, 0 true definitive nose tackles were selected. Caden McDonald was sitting right there when they picked TJ Parker. They decided to go with the edge rusher instead. So as you look at this list, a lot of names you are familiar with, but a lot of names that do not, to a T of what a true nose tackle is, fit the bill.
That was what troubled me the most about this draft. It's not the picks they actually made, it's the pick they didn't make. And when we talk about a nose tackle, it is defined as a position in the 3-4 of a bigger, wide body, strong, powerful, ties up multiple blockers. As I look at this list, Ed Oliver, TJ Sanders, and the biggest of the guys here, I would say Deion Walker, just height, weight. And he's the guy that Brandon Beane said is penciled in as the starting nose tackle. But I think he's size-wise, height-wise, not right for it. You got to have a low center of gravity, and he doesn't have that. He
also is so dynamic as a pass rusher and a penetrator. To me, that's not what you're asking in that defensive scheme for your nose tackle. You are a gap stealer, a blocker grabber, like Star Latulele. We heard that way back in the day. You take on 2 blockers to free things up for everybody else behind you.
Yeah.
I think that's taking away from what makes Deion Walker special.
It's the dirty work, the scrappy work. It's Kyle Williams, and go all the way back to the years when Fred Smerlas manned that. Now again, the position and the 3-4 has evolved in style through time a bit, not a ton, but there are more carryovers between the 4-3 and 3-4, and I think that's part of what I heard non-Bills voices, but NFL voices say this, that, look, the variation between the two, the differences aren't as drastic as maybe one might think, but they're different enough, in my opinion, where at least you should have that kind of physical presence there. Doesn't rule out that the Bills could pick one up between now and the start of the season.
And there still are questions with who is TJ Sanders, year number 2, and then we hear Dwayne Carter and Landon Jackson are coming off major injuries. They have bulked up, according to Brandon Beane, so where do they fit up front? Edge rusher, technically considered outside linebacker in the 3-4. Bills addressing that in a big way. Free agency as well as the NFL draft here, and we know it's Bradley Chubb was the big free agency addition, and TJ Parker, their first selection of the draft, a second-round pick. This is a pretty strong list here, but still you don't know exactly what you have.
And this is the part of this team that has to come up the biggest defensively. And I think it'll be more challenging if you don't have that true, and by the way, talented nose tackle. Just because someone fits the position doesn't mean they're right for it. So as we assume now that that guy isn't in the middle, these guys on the outside, Chubb, Rousseau, Michael Hoyt, and of course Parker coming in as a rookie. Look, Parker's not coming here to learn the position or be, a guy who's going to be eased into the process. He's got to make an immediate impact, John. And you heard Brandon Beane describe him as a 3-down player, which is primarily what he was at Clemson. He's got to be that and even more as a pro. He should be competing for as much play time as possible.
Michael Hoyt coming off a Achilles injury. We will see when he is able to get in the mix. Greg Rousseau, we've never really seen him as a stand-up type of guy. Javon Solomon, we're hearing all of this. He's better suited for the 3-4, but you got to see it first as well. So they got names, familiar names, but I still think that one is a group that it's like you wait and see until football is played. No real significant additions to linebacker, so that's looking clear. Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams are going to be your 2 starters in the middle, but beyond that, Vic, it's a list of young and unproven guys there. And Joe Andreessen is a great name. The athletic profile for Caleb Earlams-Orr is really nice. But then you got Jimmy Charlo, Keontae Jenkins here. This team usually keeps 5 linebackers. So if there's not any exterior additions, this is an interesting group that they got.
Interesting and thin. It's a thin situation that worries me probably more, or should worry the Bills. I mean, I'll get sleep, but it should worry the Bills because as you look at this, and look, I think Bernard and Williams are okay, solid. Not great. There's nothing great that I see on this list. It'll be interesting to see if Earlams-Orr can step in there. Jimmy Charlo's, he's a special teams guy. And
At best.
And Keontae Jenkins, these are guys that are fighting to actually be on the roster and not the practice squad.
Oh, by the way, Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams have proven to not be consistently healthy. So you are one play away from the bottom 4 names on that list seeing a significant role in this new defense.
It's a gamble.
I honestly, until I wrote the list, I don't think I realized the state of things at the linebacker position. I'm honestly surprised that there hasn't been more addressed at this spot. And I think maybe as camp cuts happen, maybe that's something that you look towards.
I'm sure it'll churn this way.
All right, cornerback's already been a talker since the draft. The position Brandon Beane calling his #1 priority entering last weekend here. We know the top 3 names, with the latest being Davison Igbinosun here. And Vic, I love that you brought this up. I wasn't thinking it when the pick was made, but the more we get past it here, I think Igbinosun versus Harrison for cornerback 2 is actually far greater of a competition storyline than maybe initially thought.
Maybe the biggest competition story of training camp or preseason, because in my view, Igbinosun physically fits the profile of the kind of corner you want for this style of defense, which is going to be aggressive. I know that's the plan, and I don't think they're going to shy away from that. And I look at Max Harrison, and what does aggressive mean at corner? It means in that first 5 yards of legal contact, you've got to be strong and physical and reroute receivers. And Igbinosun physically can do that. I don't know if it'll work that well for him in the NFL. We'll see. He's a grabber and has gotten a lot of penalties for it. But Max Harrison, it's all about speed, athleticism. He's the guy beyond 5 yards that could do okay. But I can easily see Igbinosun winning the starting job next to Christian Benford.
And I agree with Brandon Beane's point of depth. You got to have a lot of depth at corner. Look at the list, though. Besides those top three, if you have Toriano Pride Jr. as your next one, or Corey Couch, or any of those guys, because Dorian Strong's very, very uncertain with a neck injury there, you're honestly in a worse spot with injuries and guys coming onto the field than you were a year ago. I think they absolutely need a veteran. I'm not saying it's got to be Tre'Davious White. I know he's out there and still in conversations, but I don't think that's the group behind Benford, Harrison, Igbinosun that you can roll into the regular season.
No, and you know, you worry about Strong's health, absolutely. And D. Alford, a veteran that they brought into the picture here, or at least somebody with some experience, are they going to have to lean on him sooner than later? And you heard Brandon Beane go into chapter and verse in answer to your question about why cornerback was important, citing the depth issues that they had, especially into the postseason. So he set out to fix that, and that pick of Igbinosun was, I think, the loudest statement about that.
And it's a step forward. Again, I still think they need a lot more. All right, we wrap things up on defense at the very back end, and that is safety. Cole Bishop, set it and forget it, had a nice second season here. Beyond that, there's a lot of moving pieces there. Gardner Johnson, Geno Stoner additions, Jordan Hancock, a second-year player. But I think Jalen Kilgore here is the X factor that could maybe, from what you hear from people, he's like the best pick that the Bills made in the entire draft. He's someone I think is going to be fascinating to see compete with the veterans.
There's definitely been a fascination and like a lot of lauding of the Bills for getting him and putting him on the roster. I don't know how soon you'd see him or will you see him as a starter. I think at the start of the season, stability, experience is necessary. That's where Gardner Johnson would come in. Although, again, fiery personality and a guy who I think maybe that's going to be a good thing for the whole group. Geno Stone, kind of a steady pro. But after that, it's just question mark after question mark. And again, Kilgore, we'll see. X factor, if that X factor turns into something special, we shall see.
I actually think they have great depth at safety.
Yeah. They
need some of those, you know, a little bit more proven commodities that they have on this list of safety over at the quarterback position.
Yeah,
all right.
Or in backer.
Yeah, that's right. That's a look at the Bills' defense. Time to flip over to offense. Yeah, you know, wide receiver, quite the talker. Vic and I are going to discuss that and offensive line after the break. We're continuing our look at the state of the Bills roster. Only two positions on offense that honestly we really need to discuss because they're the only ones with any sort of uncertainty. Wide receiver, offensive line, and you know what we should start with? Wide receiver. You know what the top is. DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, you know it. Lord knows we've heard enough about Keon Coleman's state on this team, so he's not going anywhere. Josh Palmer, I think the real interesting piece that was the latest addition is Skylar Bell, where he fits in this group amongst the McCole Hardmans and Trent Sherfields as Tyrell Shaver's coming back from a torn ACL.
My favorite draft pick period would be Skylar Bell, just in terms of the intrigue that you have thinking about what he can mean to this receiving core. How much playing time does he get between him and, say, Keon Coleman? You look at DJ Moore, okay, he's at the top of the roster. Yes, how much will he contribute as the closest to a true number one receiver at the Bills have? We know what Khalil Shakir is all about, the reliability there. After that, it's just a bundle of questions. Does Bell provide one of the key answers? And I have the feeling, even though this is a later pick, a third-day pick, he's the kind of pick that the Bills look at as making an impact.
I loved it. I know everyone seems to universally feel the same about the pick here.
Yeah.
And to your point, this is more of a question of how quickly can he push guys like Palmer and Coleman, and then with his versatility, how do they utilize him? Because it's like, all right, DJ Moore's your outside guy. You can only keep Shakir in the slot, but they want Coleman in the slot a little bit more. It'll be interesting how Joe Brady utilizes him.
And Brandon Beane said Bell can play in and out. And, based on the scouting report was that. It sounded like a little more of a slot style player. And there's nothing wrong with having more than one guy who can do that. But if he can play multiple, if he shows that versatility, that's huge.
100%. We know left guard is up for grabs on the offensive line. There's also some transition and competition with the depth behind those starters. And they got a couple draft picks in there in Armaj Reed Adams as well as Jude Bowery as well. Again, we know the guard position is their only competition for the starting job here. But if you look at veterans like a Lloyd Cushenberry and an Austin Corbett pushing, guys like Cedric Van Pran Granger, who's been in the system a couple years, Tylen Grable, it'll be interesting to see how the second line of offensive line kind of works itself out.
Yeah, I mean, look, the best thing that happened to this line happened early enough in the offseason process when they were able to retain Connor McGovern, the anchor, because I'm trying to envision, had he taken more money to go elsewhere, which he could have done, what we'd be talking about now. And I don't, even if they addressed it in the draft, and in this particular draft, which wasn't considered very strong, how sufficiently were you doing that? That's the glue. That's the key. He's going to help as much as anything else pull this all together. And then from a coaching standpoint, and you mentioned, of course, Joe Brady. I mean, this is his baby, the whole offense, in addition to being a head coach. But you don't have Aaron Kromer there anymore. The wisdom, the depth of knowledge, the experience, the vision that he had for these guys. I know that maybe rubbed off on the rest of the coaching staff, but it's a hard thing you're not replacing him, at least in year one, I don't think.
And don't overlook the importance of replacing Ryan Vandermark's role as the swing tackle here. Right. Is that Bowery? Is it Lunt? Is it Travis Clayton? Is it Tylen Grable? Not Travis Clayton. Is it Tylen Grable? What about who slides in for Alec Anderson, who was kind of your swing guy on the inside as well? Does Cedric Van Pran Granger finally assert himself as the definitive backup there? Or do you go with, again, a Lloyd Cushenberry, who has started a lot of games in this league as well? The backups will be actually interesting, even though you really know what the starters
are. I think mixing and matching, and you and I and the rest of our staff, I mean, when we're out at St. John Fisher, we're going to pay, I know I am, and I'm sure you will too, close attention to those combos during the course of practice.
We don't need to talk about quarterback. It's going to be Kyle Allen, the backup to Josh Allen.
Oh, so it is going to be.
It is. We know what the running back situation is, and again, we know what the tight end situation is. We will get into more of like the roles and how everyone fits and expectations for who is in those spots as we inch closer to probably more of training camp. So that's the Bills. Sabres, again, tomorrow night, 7:30, Game 6. Can they finally clinch their first playoff series in a while? We'll find out. Thanks for watching.